Benvenuto, welcome to Cherry Hill Home Cooking. My name is Mark. Today we're going to make a vegetarian shepherd's pie. Thought we'd lighten things up a little bit and add another vegetarian episode. So I started looking around yesterday, the day before, for a nice vegetarian dish. And must have looked through 50 recipes, and I spotted this one and I thought, oh, that looks good. One of the big reasons being is because it had mashed sweet potatoes instead of mashed white potatoes as the topping. And I love sweet potatoes. So anyway, looked through all the recipes and couldn't quite find a combination of exactly what I wanted. So this is the first time we're making this. I've taken, probably 15 or 20 different recipes and taken the little bits and pieces of each one of them and put something together that I hope works. It sounds like it's going to work, so we'll find out together. All right, so of course, a shepherd's pie is normally made with ground lamb, or a cottage pie is normally made with ground beef. So we're going to make this vegetarian. So these are the things we're going to need. Of course, the first thing we're going to need is some sweet potatoes, which we're going to boil and mash, and that's going to be our topping. Now you're going to need about 3 pounds, and you peel them. I've peeled them. I'm just going to cut them, and you want to cut them into, small cubes, because we want them all to cook relatively quickly and at the same time. So I didn't think you guys really wanted to sit and watch me peel sweet potatoes, so I went ahead and peeled them, but we'll chop up a couple. So again, just kind of even sides. All right, and also what I was trying to do is make this recipe with using as few pots and fancy kitchen stuff as possible. So one of the other ingredients you're going to need is a large white onion. This happens to be a Vidalia onion. You can use whatever kind of onion you want, and we're just going to rough chop that. We're going to saute this. It's going to get nice and soft. I didn't even want to drag out my big wooden cutting board. Cut this one a little bit smaller, but couldn't be simpler. So we've got those all chopped up. Okay, so I'm going to go over the rest of the ingredients, but I wanted to get prep time done. So that's really the most of your prep time is going to be peeling your sweet potatoes and chopping up your onion. So then the rest of this I tried to make as quick and easy as possible. All right, so we're going to need a 14.5 ounce, or I think this is a 15 or 15.5 ounce can of chickpeas. I can't say the other word right now. So they're chickpeas, drained. So you want to drain that. We got a 14.5 ounce can of diced tomatoes, drained. All right, and then we're going to need a little bit of seasoning. Now I'm going to use this Better Than Bouillon vegetable base. If you don't have it, or you don't want to spring for the cost of it, you could certainly use a couple vegetable bouillon cubes. All right, then we're going to need some veggies. Now traditionally in my shepherd's pie I use carrots and peas. Now every recipe I saw called for 2 large carrots, and I thought to myself, 2 large carrots? Who just has 2 large carrots? Now I do have a supermarket up in our area that you can buy carrots singularly. Wasn't sure if everybody would have that, so typically I'll buy big 5-pound bag of carrots, and I really only need 2 or 3. And I always tell myself I'm going to make something with the rest of them, but inevitably they end up sitting in the vegetable crisper for the next year. So I thought, let's try this recipe using some frozen. So I've got a cup of frozen carrots and a cup of frozen peas. All right. For our seasoning, along with our bouillon base, our vegetable base, we're going to use some rosemary, some thyme, and some granulated garlic. That's a half a teaspoon of each. Of course, we're going to need a little bit of oil to saute our onions in. We're going to need some vegetable stock. I'm going to use a little bit of red wine to deglaze the pan, just a touch. One of the other comments that I kept seeing on a lot of the recipes that I was looking at was one, the carrots didn't cook all the way through. And you do want to have a little bit of bite to the carrot, but I think with the gazanza beans, the chickpeas, we're going to give it that. And also a lot of the recipes I saw call for lentils. I don't particularly like lentils, so I thought we'd go with the chickpeas, and that'll give us a little bit of texture as well. The second thing is that it was too liquidy. Now, I always thicken my sauce when I make a shepherd's pie or a cottage pie. So we're gonna, as we go through, we'll see how this recipe comes out. I'm thinking we're going to need about 2 to 3 cups of vegetable stock. Remember, not chicken stock, vegetable stock. We're making vegetarian. So I'm going to, if need be, we're going to make a little slurry with cornstarch. Everybody knows what a slurry is. It's equal parts cornstarch and equal parts of water. I think we're probably going to need 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch and 1/4 cup of water. That'll give us enough to thicken it up if we have to. And I'm also going to use a little bit of butter to mash our potatoes with. So that's, in general, all the vegetarian items. Now, you could make this completely vegan if you wanted and use vegan butter. A couple of the other recipes I saw called for cheese on the top. I've decided not to go with it because I just think with all the different flavors, it doesn't need the cheese. All right, so we got our sweet potatoes in our pan. I'm going to put it on the stove. I'm going to bring it to a boil, and we're going to let those boil. It should take 10-15 minutes for them to get fork tender. All right, in the meanwhile, while I'm doing that, I'm going to clean up the rest of this. The rest of this recipe is going to come together really quick. Everything is going to be cooked. It actually even has a short cooking time, which your oven's going to be set at 375. But when we get to that point, I'll remind you. All right, let's get cooking. Okay, I've got my sweet potatoes on the stove, and we're going to get the rest of our ingredients in our saute pan. One thing I do want to talk about, I'm going to use this little Anchor Hopkins glass dish. I think this is a 4-quart, 3.5. You can use, whatever glass baking dish you've got, a square one, 8x8 probably. I wouldn't go with the 9x12 or 9x13 because that's gonna make your bottom layer really too thin, and then you're not gonna have enough potatoes. So a 8x8, 8x9 square pan is good. Even a pie pan, if you've got a deep pie pan, you can use to bake it. I did want to try to get this all into the frying pan, so we would only have one pan, but none of my frying pans are big enough that I can use on the induction. So I would have used my cast iron, but I only have a 10-inch cast iron. I really do need to get a 12-inch cast iron pan. So we're going to end up doing it in the in this little glass Anchor Hopkins pan. I love that little baking dish anyway because it has a cover. You can cover it. It's easy to transport. You can cover it for leftovers. But anyway, all right. So we've got. I did that babbling so my pan could heat up. All right. So we're gonna just kind of nicely, probably a tablespoon or so, olive oil in our pan. We got our onions. We're gonna get them in there. back in there. And we want to get the onions caramelized and soft, but not necessarily brown. So let's get rid of that piece. So, like always when we're sauteing something, we want to get it covered with the oil in our pan. And we're going to let that go. I think we need a little bit more oil. And we're going to, oh God, that already smells delicious, doesn't it? I love the smell of sauteing onions. So we're going to let that cook for 2-3 minutes. Then we're going to add just a little pinch of salt, because the salt will help bring out the moisture and get those browning up a little bit. Oh, by the way, Jojo, I don't know if you answered my reply to your, I think it was on the, oh, I forgot which recipe it was on. Forgive me, got my memories going. But anyway, I asked you if you knew what was playing on the TV. 99.9% of the time when I'm in the kitchen, whether I'm cooking or cleaning or just sitting having a cup of coffee, something is on the TV, whether it's news. And I have a whole collection of my favorites. Dark Shadows, which I have never actually gotten through. I've seen all of them, but a couple years ago, Wade bought me a beautiful box set of the Dark Shadows, and I've never actually gotten through the whole thing, because I usually watch Dark Shadows probably mid-September. Of course, it's starting to cut close to Halloween, and I don't know, for some reason, when it gets dark out earlier, and I just want to watch that, so I start watching that. I pick up where I left off from the previous year. But anyway, so I've got Dark Shadows, I've got Keeping Up Appearances, As Time Goes By, The Vicar of Dibley, and this one, Jojo, is A Fine Romance. And I'm not quite sure exactly when it was originally shot. I'm going to say maybe the late 70s, early 80s, maybe a little later than that. But of course, one of the leads in it is Judi Dench, and I think this is one of the first BBC romantic sitcoms she did. And the other gentleman that stars alongside of her, that's her husband. I believe his first name is Michael, but again, memory has failed me. I can't think of his last name. He was very, very established stage actor in England during this time frame, and TV and movies as well. By the way, he tragically passed away. I think it was 2001. But anyway, so that's what it is. It's called A Fine Romance. It was on for several years. So we're going to add a little bit of salt, guys. Just a couple pinches. Help that start along. So if you get a chance to check it out, check it out. It's a cute, romantic comedy that I enjoy a lot. Anyway, okay, so you can see we're just starting to pick up a little bit of color. All right, and I'm going to let that saute for another 5 minutes or so. It should get to the point where we want it, and we'll be back then. Oh, before we go, one thing you got to remember with sauteing onions, it's not really something you can just throw on there and walk away, or else you're going to get burnt on one side. So when you are lightly browning onions, you really have to stand at the pot and stir them. All right, be back in a minute. Okay, guys, all of our onions are golden brown, and you can see we got a little bit of our deliciousness on the bottom of the pan. So we want to deglaze our pan. Now I've turned my heat down to about medium low. All right, and just gonna, now you can use whatever type of liquid you want. You can use some vegetable stock if you want. You can use some water. In this case, especially with, we don't have any meat to give it that unctuousness, I'm gonna use a little bit of red wine. I don't even think, that's not even really a quarter of a cup. Just a couple splashes. And of course you get that delicious smell of the red wine. And put that around a bit. All right, I'm gonna add my, rosemary and rosemary, garlic, and what else did I put in there? I can't remember. Rosemary, thyme. Rosemary and thyme. Okay. We'll swish that around a little bit. Let those dry herbs take in a little bit of that wine and wake up again.
Smell that.
Yep. Doesn't that smell good? All right. So then we're going to take our vegetable stock. And like I said, we're going to use, initially about 2 cups. And mix that up a bit. All right, let me grab a paper towel because that mess is going to drive me crazy. All right, so we've got our vegetable base or your bouillon. And I'm going to use a nice kind of regular coffee teaspoony thing. And we want a good helping teaspoon of it. All right. Get that moving along in there. Okay. Then we can get our vegetables in there. So we've got our cup of frozen corn and our cup of frozen peas.
Carrots.
Sorry. Thank you, Wade. Those are carrots, not corn. The recipe will be written, and all the correct ingredient names and measurements will be in there. All right, then we can add in our chickpeas. Like I said, I've drained just about all the liquid out of there. They're jumping out of the pool. All right, and then let's get our crushed tomatoes in there. Get in there. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back up to medium. And we're going to just let that heat through. And then we'll give it a taste, check its seasoning. We really haven't added a lot of salt, other than those few little pinches for the onions. Of course, there is some salt in the vegetable base, but all right, we're going to let that heat up, and we'll be back. Okay, our veggies is all nicely heated through, and yes, in my opinion, that is way too thin, so we're going to thicken that up a bit. First out, we're going to drain our potatoes. My potatoes are all nice and fork tender, so let's get them in the strainer. And I'm going to mash them right in that same pot. But we'll let them sit there and drain a few minutes while we thicken this up. First, I'm going to taste our broth. And we haven't put any pepper in this, so I'm sure we're going to need some pepper at least. It's pretty good. I think maybe a pinch of salt, and we need a couple good pinches of pepper, a few. Again, we haven't put any pepper in at all, so I'm going to say that's probably about half a teaspoon of pepper. All right, let's get that. Stir it up again. Now, we're just at about this, this boil here. So we want to leave that at the boil right now, because when you put your cornstarch in to thicken it up, you want it to be hot. So I've got a quarter of a cup of cornstarch. I'm probably not going to need that, all of it, but it's better to bake a little bit more ahead of time than have to go back and make another batch. Quarter cup of water. Okay. Want to stir it up. Make sure there are no big lumps. So remember, it's always half and half. If you use a teaspoon of cornstarch, then you want a teaspoon of water. Okay, and let's start to drizzle it in. I don't know if you can notice that, but it almost immediately starts to thicken. Now, if I was cooking on the range, I would have used a bigger pan, but it's easier. And then you guys having to watch my back cook. So, all right, I think that is perfect. All right, we can turn that off because we are done cooking. All right, I have, my oven is preheating to 375. I didn't use that, so I'll put that back. All right, let's do our potatoes. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little butter to this because we have really no other fat whatsoever in here. So we're going to need about 3 tablespoons, which is going to give it that nice kind of mouthfeel. I'm going to add just a tad pepper and a little bit of salt. And that looks like a lot, but it's really probably about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And mash this up. Now, of course, depending upon if you like a really smooth mash, then you could even whip it. I think for this, just because we don't have that meat texture, I might leave it a little rustic, a little bit of chunks in it, but not much. Okay, I think that's good. Alrighty, while my oven heats up, I'm gonna get this ready to put together, and we'll be back when it's time. All right, we're ready to put this together. Let's see if my plan for this dish has worked out. I think it's gonna work just about perfect. All right, so like I said, our oven is heated. Flatten it out. Okay, and then we got our sweet potatoes. I'm going to try to do this like I do with shepherd's pie and leave just a little bit along the edges empty. We'll see if it bubbles up nice like shepherd's pie that I make that's not meatless. And of course, if you're using, you might end up with a little bit, I might end up with a little bit, well, we'll use it all anyway. You can say, depending upon what kind of pan you're using. But I think we can get this all on top. Now, if you'd like, you could certainly put some cheese on top of this or some breadcrumbs. I'm going to forego those for this first try. And all right, and then if you take a fork and you kind of make some lines in it, what I'm trying to do is make some ridges so that the little peaks of them get nice and brown. Now everything in this is cooked and it just kind of looks a little bit more rustic. And all right, so we've got, let's go over to the oven. We got the, like I said, the oven is preheated at 375. Now, our goal with this, of course, everything's all cooked. Our goal with this is to get it heated all the way through. If you've, not gone from one step to the other as fast as I did, but we want to get a nice crust. So, well, through the middle of the oven, and that's probably going to take 20 minutes. 15 to 20 minutes. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure because the first time I've done this recipe. You could even crank the heat up higher, but you have to keep an eye on it. So we're going to let this go for 20 minutes. I'm going to check it, keep my eye on it, make sure that it's not browning too quickly, but I think it's going to take about 20 minutes. Okay, Google, set a timer for 20 minutes.
All right, 20 minutes, starting now.
And it worked. All right, see you in roughly 20 minutes. Okay, I let it go the 20 minutes. I checked it. It wasn't browning. So I let it go another 5 minutes. So let's give it a quick check. Ooh, it's beautifully nice and bubbling around the sides, just like I want it. But it's not getting as brown as I want. It's hard to see in there. It is a bit brown. So now, in some of the recipes I saw it called for putting some cheddar cheese on top. So of course it would get a little bit browner that way. Maybe because the sweet potatoes got a little bit moisture in them than, say, white russets might have. And we're going to add this to the recipe. So I'm going to keep the instructions at bake for 20 minutes. And then I'm going to say, if you haven't added any cheese or breadcrumbs or anything like that, let's put it on broil for 2-3 minutes. As soon as my broil heats up, I'll keep an eye on it, and we'll come back and show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so I've had it under the broiler for about 3-4 minutes. I think it's going to get as brown as it's going to without burning. So we ended up getting a little bit of color on there. Not as much as I would have liked, so I think I definitely would do a little bit of breadcrumbs or maybe the cheese, but I think it looks delicious. All right, we're going to take some pictures It'll cool down a little bit while we take some pictures, and then we'll give it a try. See you in a bit. Well, are we ready to try our new creation?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Why?
Well, give me your honest opinion.
Mm.
Might be hot, though.
Yep. Actually pretty good.
Just pretty good?
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's not shepherd's pie.
not shepherd pie, and I prefer meat in mine. But being vegetarian, it's actually good.
Well, I think it's darn good.
Yeah.
I think that this is a nice little alternative. It's certainly got a lot of protein in it. It's got a lot of different flavors.
So we get your vegetables in there.
Definitely. I think it's actually delicious.
Yeah, there you go.
The only thing I'd change is it browned less than I thought it would. In my head, I had this beautiful golden brown on the sweet potatoes. So I think I'll put in the notes on the recipe, maybe do a little bit of panko breadcrumbs on the top. Because again, when you put it in the oven, it's all, everything is cooked.
Yeah.
But it would give it a little bit of texture as well. So other than that, I am very happy with this recipe. We know several people in our life that would be very happy to have this for dinner or lunch. Well, all right, guys. I hope that you enjoyed watching us make our vegetarian shepherd's pie. More importantly, I hope you like it and that you make it.
Yes. Please like and subscribe, and check out cherryhillhomecooking.com. See you on the next video.
Ciao.
Bye.
I think it's pretty good.
It is good. Yeah. Need some lamb though. But it would be vegetarian.
Oh,
That's good.
especially when you got a piece of the potato that isn't quite mashed. It's got a little texture to it. Yep. And again, Dave might feel like this would be completely vegan without putting a little bit of butter. Medium rare.